Okay, here we are in Adobe Illustrator. This is our first exercise in Illustrator. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the Apple logo. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the internet and I'm going to find an image of it. So I'm going to say copy image. Hopefully you can see that. Come back here to Adobe Illustrator and I have to make a new file. So I'm going to choose File, New. And it gives me a lot of choices. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with letter size. And letter size may give you different dimensions, but we're going to actually make sure this part says inches, and make sure the width is 10 and the height is 10. So it's no longer letter size, now it's custom. So we're doing 10 inches by 10 inches, and leave all the other stuff alone and say create. So now we have the image here, which we can paste into. Now, there's no right click and paste as there are with some programs. So we're going to choose edit and paste. And there's our image that we're working with today. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And you'll notice that my panels are everywhere. So I'm going to actually choose Window and Workspace and Reset Essentials Classic. So now I've got this all kind of laid out properly. Now that image, I'm not that excited about because it's kind of, oops, let me just try to arrange my panels so we can see better. So it's got a couple things going. One, it's too big, and the other part is it's just not very good to trace. I'm going to go find a different one to work with. Let me delete that one. And let's go back into my search. And I'm just going to pick one that works better. Let me just choose this rainbow one. Later we'll learn how to do the rainbow part of this. It's not that tough. But I'm going to copy the image. I'm going to go back to Illustrator and paste. Now I can do Control V, or I can use Edit and Paste. So I'm going to go kind of quick on this, but you can slow me down by stopping the video at any time. So first thing I need to do is open up my layers panel, and I like to float my layers out because in Illustrator I'm always messing around with my layers, even more so than in Photoshop. So what I'll do is I'm going to leave this layer, I'm going to double click on the layer properties by choosing the icon, and I want to dim images to like 50 or even 30%. Let's make that 30. And I also want to lock the layer. And when we're done, we want to not print that layer. So the reason we don't want to print it is it's just our tracing image. Now, a lot of times we might use a tracing image that we drew on a piece of paper, or trying to figure out another logo, or lots of ways to deal with this. But that's now a locked layer. There's a little lock there. Show and hide is that little eyeball right there. And this one tells us if it's selected or not, which it can't be because it's locked. Now we're going to create a new layer. And this layer is going to contain a lot more objects than we do. Like in Photoshop, each layer is its own bitmap. In this, a layer can be a collection of vector objects. So I'm going to choose the Ellipse Tool. And I'm going to go ahead and, now a couple things I can do. I can draw this, and I'm going to choose a spot strategically that lines up with those two edges. But I can move it around with the space bar. So as I'm drawing, I can move the space bar around to get that better. So I'm just going to get this here. And I'm going to get as close as I can, but I'll notice, well, I guess I'll just do that. Okay, so now I'm going to make one of these and copy it to make the other. So so far what I move is the selection tool. Allows me to move, scale, rotate, etc. So here's the different things I can do to rotate. Oops. So there's rotate. So putting it back the way it should be. The other arrow here, which is the white arrow, is the direct selection tool. And it allows me to adjust points. So if I do this, I'm going to put these points where I think they should be. Now, sometimes it goes bad, and I click Control Z to reset it. So all I care about is these left side 3 points. I can't see very good, so I'm going to try to see through it by changing the opacity. So opacity is here, and I can use a slider to drag that left. So I just want to see through it enough to see if I'm on track or not with my illustration. You can, of course, use the zoom tool, so that's Z, and then V back to the selection tool, or A back to the direct select. So I'm going to use the direct selection to adjust these points a little bit. I'm pretty close most of the places. Okay, and I can use these handles to change the shape of the curve. So those handles are mathematical tangents, and as you may know, a tangent is a line that intersects a curve, a circle, or an arc at exactly one point. So I'm just going to try to get these dialed in exactly. And now, because I feel like I'm pretty close, I'm going to edit. I'm going to I guess, copy, or I could actually use the object panel. So with the object panel, I'm going to arrange, transform, and you can't see it, it's way up there on the screen. Let me bring this down so you can see it. So if I choose object, transform, it's still way up there, it's driving me crazy. But I'm gonna choose reflect. You can almost see it. So reflect, and this window comes up, and I wanna go through the vertical axis as demonstrated here, and I wanna copy. Now the reason I wanted to copy, that actually came out completely opposite of what I wanted. Oh, because I had the wrong tool selected. So I had to make sure you select it with the selection tool, use object, transform, reflect. I feel like it should still be, let's do copy again. Okay, that one worked better. Now this time, I now have two of these as demonstrated in the layer panel. So I'm gonna take the second one and move it over with shift. And the shift key allows me to move it in a straight line. So now it should match up pretty much exactly on that side. And it looks pretty good. So now I've got two of them. So now we're gonna get a thing that we didn't see in Photoshop. This is a new thing. If I open Pathfinder down here, actually if you open a line, Pathfinder shows up. So Pathfinder, line, and transform are three panels that are very good friends. They always show up together. So I'm gonna choose Pathfinder, and there are a bunch of buttons in here. Right now we're gonna use Unite. Okay, we're only using two of these buttons today, so Unite is the one we want. So if I select both of these objects and Unite, it now makes them into one path. Now, it still doesn't fit quite right, and I need to work with this. So if I use the direct selection tool and select that point right there, one of the things I need to do first is up here in the options panel, I'm going to set this to convert selected anchor points to smooth and move that up. So I'm going to use the arrow keys to move it up because it moves at more controlled increments. It moves in a straight line. I can also take these lines here and I can adjust these a little bit at a time. And I want to just get that to match that curve. All right. Now we're going to do the same thing down here. So this time we're going to change the anchor points to smooth, and that just determines what the shape of that point is. Is it cornered? Is it angled? And we're starting to see something like an apple. And the next thing I want to do is add another shape. So I'm going to use the Ellipse Tool again, and I can use something like here to figure out where it goes. Oops. That's pretty close-ish, maybe. Maybe not. Let's get the selection tool, and I just want to match that shape. That's the bite out of it, and that one's on top. So if I look at this, that selected one is above the other one, so I have two paths. And if I use this and select them both, this button is minus front. So when I click minus front, it goes back to one path. All right, we're almost there, we're almost finished. And so you can take this, and what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna zoom out, and I'm gonna make two overlapping ellipses. So this part's actually pretty tough because these two ellipses don't like lock that layer that I already have. There we go, so I'm still inside layer 2. And if I make this ellipse, I'm trying to match that shape of that curve by using, let's see, it's smaller. And I'm using the space bar to move my shape around. And I'm trying to get it close-ish to there. All right, that looks pretty good. And I can, of course, take the opacity and drag it down again, just so I can see through it. Now, the copy of it may or may not fit the other side of the curve. There's this side. That looks okay. Actually, it was, yeah, they're both still there. So I select those two, and I'm gonna, this time I'm gonna use intersect. So earlier I said we're gonna use 2 of these, we're gonna use 3. So intersect makes that now the shape I want. We can now select both pieces. Let's unlock this one. Select them both, and change the color so we can see it for a change, like to red or something. And let's change the opacity and drag it up to 100%. And we're going to move this over, and there's our shape. And now we're going to use the type tool on a 3rd layer. So on the 3rd layer, we're going to use the type tool, and we're going to type, let's actually hide our original image. And now we're going to type your name on there. So on this new, oops, let's get a new layer. There's my new layer. So as I click here, I'm going to say my name, which today is going to be Clint Eastwood. And you'll notice I can't see it very good, so we're going to make that bigger. Whereas in Photoshop we had to change the type up here in the character panel. We can do that for sure, but you can also just drag the corners because it's a vector object. So now I can change the size that I want to see what I want it to be, and now my whole apple is finished. So lastly, we're going to save this thing. So two ways to save it, and really important that you get these both. One is save as, and this will take a second sometimes, but the save as window is going to pop up sometime today. There we go. So the save as window is going to put in this folder here, Apple logo, and my last name. So I click save. So an AI file, the Adobe Illustrator file, is the editable version that allows us to go back and change all these things in the layer panel. So for example, I can change the name and the type, I can change the colors, all these things can be adjusted and changed as I see fit. You can always go back and adjust the points, the shapes. I can even add an outline to this thing. So if I go here and lock it and add an outline to it, I can just choose this. So let's have an outline. We can always change the thickness of the outlines. We can change a lot of things about this. In fact, you can try out the brush panel. Try the brushes, and that does interesting things. So that's important that we're able to have the AI file because that allows us to open it and re-edit it. But it doesn't work on the internet. So when you turn it in, you have to use export and export as. So I think we had an export as in Photoshop also. We're not going to export this to Photoshop. We're going to export this to PNG. So it's a lot like what we had in Photoshop, but it's a little bit different. Background color is white. Let's see this. Let's just give us some choices. And it's a little bit different. You can also try export for screens. So export for screens lets you set the size of the image that you're exporting somewhere. Gosh, let's see. Format scale. So you want to make sure you're choosing a PNG here. So artboards, assets. Yeah, this one I'm not as familiar with apparently. So if I just export this, notice that this one gave me a white background, which I like better. You have to have a background in there. If you don't have the background, it's going to see through and it'll show right through. So export the artboard. We should probably change the file name. So if I choose export to, it'll tell it where to go. Okay, so we can pick a folder that way. And somehow it wants to change the name of the artboard, so let's just export artboard and replace whatever's there. So then here's your this, and it's actually sent it to Creative Cloud file. So what you might want to do instead is file, just use file, export. And if you use save for web, this is actually a lot more effective. It's kind of older school, and it's a much larger screen than I want to use right now. But let's bring it in, and we're going to use the PNG 24 format. We're going to uncheck transparency so the background is white. And down at the bottom, you won't see it, but there's a save button. And this one's much easier. So if you use this one, you're going to export to the file of your choosing with the name of your choice. And go to save. Make sure you pay attention to where you saved it to. Then you can upload that one to the document, to Canvas. All right, that's how you do it. Review as needed, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.